worries, stress, or anxiety about money affects your life. And honestly, if you're watching this, you should put a thumbs up in the comments, because worries, stress, and anxiety about money, it impacts everybody's life. In fact, in a recent survey, I don't have it here in front of me, but in a recent survey, I read that I think it was done by Forbes, 87% of people that were asked said that they feel some level of stress about money worries. Now, I'm going to talk to you about how to deal with money worries, but I want to draw a line in the sand real quick about what kind of money worries I'm talking about and what kind I'm not. If you are in a situation right now that is acute, you have no money, you are unemployed, and you've run out of money. You work for the government and you haven't gotten your paycheck last week, and it doesn't look like you're getting one this week. And frankly, it's totally unacceptable that this is happening. And you're starting to panic because you are running out of money. And like most people, at least in the United States, you're one paycheck away from not being able to pay your bills. That was me 10 years ago. If that's you, you don't have money worries, you have a money problem. And the only thing that will solve the very real problem that you have is taking action and being super proactive, even though you're scared right now and you're frustrated right now, being super proactive to get the help that you need, to get the services that you need. If you need to go to a food pantry, do not let pride get in your way. One of the things that happens when people have money problems is that they are so confronted by the problem and the reality of the situation that they avoid dealing with it, because facing it head on and realizing that you got to call family members for help right now because it's that scary. You got to go to the daycare center and say, hey, you know I'm good for the money. I know you're a small business, but my God, until I get paid next, can you cut me some slack and let my daughter still go to school at daycare here so that I can show up at work at the airport or show up at the military? So, you need to face it head on if you have money problems. Okay? Got it? Good. Because that's the only way that money problems actually get fixed, is when you get proactive and instead of being scared and avoiding the situation, you hit it head on and you have those hard conversations with yourself and you start reaching out and asking for help. In this training, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about the money anxiety that most of us struggle with. And that's the habit that you have, your default mode of thinking about money that stresses you out. You have a job, you're getting a paycheck, you're making the ends meet, and you worry about it all the time. You go into work and you want to ask for a raise, but you're so worried about your worth that you convince yourself you don't deserve the money, so you don't ask for it. That it's your mental relationship to money itself and how you feel about yourself and your own self-worth, and how that mindset impacts how you behave and how you think about money. That is what we're talking about in this training. And so there's a couple things that I want to call your attention to. Number one, and I will tell you what videos I want you to watch. Any thinking pattern that you have that doesn't serve you can be changed. And that's what you're learning in Mindset Reset. And if you have a negative thinking pattern about money, that is a thinking pattern that you want to change. Because when you change how you think about money, whether or not you deserve it, whether or not if you work hard you'll make it, whether or not it's going to turn out for you, whether or not you're disciplined about what you spend your money on, and whether or not you save it. If you change how you think about money, you'll make a hell of a lot more of it. I'm going to tell you that right now. And so if there's an area of your life that you really want to take a deliberate look at, it's how does money trigger you to think? And how does your personal psychology and your default mindset trigger you to think about money and whether or not you deserve it? And whether, I know so many of you think, how many of you think I'm not good with money? I had that story for a long time. I'm just not good with money. And that default way of thinking believe, I mean, it's not surprising you're taking Mindset Reset. If you think you're not good about money, guess what? You won't be. If you think it, you will behave consistently with it. That's how this works, which is why we want to change how you think so that you change how you behave. So here's a couple things about your mindset related to money. It's like your mindset related to anything else. It's just that money is a huge trigger for most of us. There's two kinds of worries, and we've already covered this, and I'm going to refer you back to the video about this. You're going to go back to videos 13 and video 14 on this, okay? And so there's only two kinds of worries. Video 13, video 14. I want you to look at this. Two kinds of worries. There's productive worrying, and there's destructive worrying. Too many of you worry about money and it is destructive. Your worries about money make you spend money that you don't have. Your worries about money talk you into doing things that are not smart with money. Your worries about money have you undervalue what you think you should be paid. Your worries about money keep you trapped in your head instead of doing things that will make you more money. And so we got to change this, because I guarantee you that the reason why you have a destructive habit of worrying about money has something to do with how you were trained to think about money or think about yourself from your past. So again, if you worry about money and it empowers you to make more of it, and it's not making you unhealthy to worry about it, fantastic. That's a productive form of worrying, because worrying can be productive if it signals and triggers you to take action to fix a particular problem. Worrying is destructive if it makes you feel bad about yourself, if it makes you do things that are contrary to your goals, if it makes you stressed out. And I bet that you have the destructive kind of worrying. So now let's go a little bit deeper. What do you do if you've got a habit of having a destructive pattern of worrying about money, of thinking you're unworthy, of telling yourself you're not successful, of telling yourself you're not going to make it, of buying things that you can't afford, but you buy it as a way to validate yourself because you feel bad about yourself? What I want you to do is I want you to go back and repeat some of the exercises that we did in the very beginning of the program. So if you haven't signed up for Mindset Reset, no problem. There's no race. You haven't fallen behind. There's plenty of time. You can do this at your pace. All of the videos are available for free. They're all on our YouTube channel. They're all on our Facebook pages. And if you go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset, you will get an email from us that has amazingly helpful links that will give you the playlist of everything. It's like, boom, just like that. So go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset. If you go to videos 1 through 8, you will see the foundational training that we did on the science of thinking, on your default mindset, on worrying, on all kinds of really important skills and science for you to understand. And it's super easy. And you really need to go watch this stuff. The second thing is that from video 13 on, we covered the morning routine from 9 until 11, that's it. No, we did a lot longer. 9 until video 12. We did a ton of stuff on the morning routine and on the journaling method that I use. You can revisit 9 through 12 if you want to check that out. But really, we started picking up on worrying and anxiety and the connection between those two things at video 13. So if money is something you worry about, you're going to look at video 13 and video 14. And I'm going to explain the assignments, but this is going to help you go back and identify why you are triggered by money. You see, something happened to you. And in video 14, we talk a lot about how you identify the triggers that cause you to do things that you want to stop doing. And I want to say something very quickly about triggers and about the work that you're doing. You are not fixing yourself, okay? When you do a mindset reset, you're not fixing yourself, because you, my friend, are not broken. You are exactly where you need to be right now. You have all of the lessons from your life, from all the great things, all the failures, everything. You're exactly where you need to be right now in your life in order to get to the next level that you want to get to. We're not fixing you. We're fixing patterns from your past that no longer serve you right now and will not help you get to your future. So what we want to fix and change is we want to fix and change the patterns that get triggered by your past that aren't going to help you get to your future. And so if you look at video 13 and you look at video 14, I walk you through some exercises where you go through your day and you identify all the things that trigger you related to, and in this case, it's going to be money. So what I want you to do today or tomorrow, whenever you have time, is I want you to wake up after you do your morning routine, and I want you to go through your day and notice all day long what triggers you to worry or make yourself wrong or think about in a negative way money. What is it? Is it the price of coffee and telling yourself you shouldn't do it? Is it looking at your paycheck? Is it checking your bank balance? Is it looking at things that, catching yourself looking at things you can't afford? What is it that triggers you? Is it seeing other people in expensive clothing and making yourself wrong? What about money triggers you? And then you're going to ask yourself the question that I already taught you to ask in videos 13 and 14. And that question is, don't say what's wrong with me about money. Why can't I make money? Don't ask yourself those questions, which are basically like punching yourself in the face. Ask yourself this question. What happened to me to make me believe that I'm not worth making money? What happened to me that made me believe that I'm not smart enough to be successful? What happened to me that makes me believe that I need to buy something in order to feel good about myself? Because there is a connection between something that happened to you and the association that it triggered with money. And we got to get to that pattern because that's the pattern that we need to fix. And when you start to work on the pattern, so being deliberate about not buying stuff that you don't need and coming up with something else that you're going to do instead to make yourself feel good. Being deliberate about making a plan to go ask for that raise, or making a plan every day to work on your multi-level marketing business or your side hustle project, so that every day, instead of having yourself be triggered by money and the lack of money and the fact that you haven't made a sale yet, that you're actually in action, making things happen so that you do make the money. This is how you change the patterns around money that are triggered by your negative belief system and triggered by your self-doubt.
I would love for you to talk to the person listening and guide them through the process of locating this core memory so that they have that with them as we move forward, and you help us define this philosophy that you've created called a rich life.
I love it. Let's do it.
Okay.
So let's start. We're going to start in your early 20s.
Okay.
And we're going to zigzag throughout our conversation today. We're going to go back to childhood and we're going to go to the future. We'll do it all because that's what money is about. It's about understanding the seasons of life and how money interacts.
Oh, I fucking love this. Okay.
So in my 20s, again, that irrational joy came from being able to buy appetizers. And for everybody here, I want you to think about, you may have been in college, you may have been working at your first job. What was the thing where you said to yourself, I wish I could do that? Or am I ever going to be able to do that? And remember, it's not usually a big thing. It's not, I want to take a round the world trip and stay in all these fancy places. It's often an appetizer. It's being able to pay for your own vacation. It might be, a lot of people joke about it's getting the guac at Chipotle. It might actually be that. There's nothing shameful about a small, vivid aspiration that you had. How do you think everyone listening is going along with this journey so far, Mel?
I think good. Amy?
Okay.
You think we're good? Okay, good. Yeah. My producer's like, this is fantastic.
Okay, good.
We got,
good.
I think we're all right there. I have a question to ask you to go a little deeper in this, because I noticed that, you've spent a lot of time studying psychology, and you, of course, help people change the way they think about money. And I would love to ask you about the way in which your formative years as a child and what you experienced as your parents' emotion or conversation around money, how that impacts your mindset around it. And, I'm asking that because I feel like it must be somehow related to this core memory of, I just wish I could go and take myself on vacation. I wish I could buy the guacamole. I wish I didn't have to worry about the needle on the tank of gas getting to empty and not being able to fill it up. And so for me personally, it's interesting. My parents, my father was the first person in his family to go to college, and he had to pay for it. And my mother also went to college and had to pay for it, and she ended up dropping out to have me. And then my dad got into medical school, and my mom worked nights for the IRS and my dad took care of me at night, and then she took care of me during the day. And we lived in public housing while he was a medical student and when he was a resident in Dayton, Ohio. And then I was in fourth grade when my parents were able to purchase their first home. And my dad did not pay off his medical school loans until late into his 30s. But here's the interesting thing about it. Even though we struggled, and I can relate to we never went out to eat when I was a kid. Not until middle school, anyway. And I never remember my parents being stressed out about money.
What do you remember them saying about money?
Nothing. I don't remember them talking about it. And I just had this sense, because there was this ease about it, that if you need something, you figure out how to get it. That there wasn't a lot of griping or complaint. And I know they were trying to make the ends meet. And they come from very blue collar, modest families, hardworking. They were very hardworking. And so I just kind of got this thing like money's there when you work for it, and you don't need to worry about it. And you know what I mean? Like not like I was spoiled or anything. That was not it at all.
Yeah.
But they didn't pass on the stress to me. Now, Chris's family had plenty of money, but there was this huge dialogue. You don't deserve that. We don't have it. You're not going to be spoiled. And so his butt is so clenched when it comes to money. Like the guy's like, how much does the guacamole cost? I'm like, dude, have you seen our checking account? You can afford it. Like he literally adopted this kind of gripping mentality. How does how does that impact the mindset that you have, your early childhood years?
So you just gave us a fantastic journey into your childhood, and if you don't mind,
please,
I'm going to dive a little bit deep and kind of go. Shine a light on what you just told me. Okay. So a lot of this comes from my work on my podcast, and of course on the Netflix show with individuals and couples. And many people believe that money is simply about numbers. And of course, the numbers are a very small part of how we experience money. So when you say your family never really talked about money, but there was a sort of ease about it, I'm listening, I'm going, okay. And then it clicks when you tell me they were blue collar and they taught us that if you work hard, money will come. Okay, that's a cohesive belief. I totally agree. Sometimes I speak to couples where one person in the couple grew up, let's say white collar, maybe upper middle class, and the other grew up working class, blue collar. Their beliefs conflict and they can't figure out why, right? They think it's about, oh, she spends too much at Target, or his truck is too expensive. But really, there's this belief, particularly with different class structures, which we never really talk about in America, which is if something's hard, let's just grind harder. And you can grind harder. There's no doubt about that. Law school, medical school. But there's a certain point where grinding a little harder just doesn't work. You have to change the way you think about money. For example, did your parents talk about investing, IRAs, compound interest when you were growing up?
Oh my God, no.
Exactly. And so some of the folks who I speak to, they said, we were talking about investing at age 5 around the dinner table. Here's what happens if you put a quarter in the bank. Now, imagine if a couple is meeting and one of them's been talking about investing since age 5 and the other has never talked about investment. That's what we discover when we peel back the curtain and we see how beliefs affect us. So if you're listening, the question I would ask you is, what conversations do you remember your family having when you were young about money? What phrases? Here's some examples that might sound familiar. We can't afford it. We don't talk about money in this family. We're not like those people. We don't need a fancy car, vacation, eating out. Any of these sound? You heard these, or your friends heard these?
No, but I have heard these.
Okay.
I'm nodding because I'm like, this is exactly what people hear.
Exactly. And so here's the consequence of that. Okay. So you hear the most common one is we can't afford it.
Yes.
Parents just say this like it just comes out of their mouth. Parents, you got to stop, because let me tell you what happens. They end up 40 years later talking to me, and they heard we can't afford it 10,000 times growing up, just reflexively. Oh, I want shoes. We can't afford it. I want a trapper keeper. We can't afford it. And then this person, hopefully they end up in a pretty nice job. You know, maybe they read my book. They set up some investments. Maybe they've done well. They have some decent amount of money. They come to me to go, why do I still feel guilty ordering a salad when I eat out? And my partner is saying, we have the money. Look at our checking account. Why? Well, trace it all the way back to conversations you had starting at age 6. We can't afford it. And it really shows this key principle of money, which is the way you feel about money is highly uncorrelated to how much you've got in the bank.
Okay, say that again.
Yeah. The way you feel about money is highly uncorrelated to how much you've got in the bank. Most of us believe if I have $5,000 more or $50,000 more or $500,000, finally I'll feel safe. And I'm here to deliver some unfortunate news, which is that's never going to happen. Now, you can change the way you feel about money. You can, but a number in the bank is never going to change your feelings about it because it's uncorrelated. You've got to work. If you want to live a rich life, you got to do two things at the same time. One, you got to understand the numbers, the basic numbers of finance. You've got to know your savings rate. You've got to understand the rule of 72. This stuff is actually not complicated. It's really fun. We could talk about them. I'll give you a couple of ratios. It's easy stuff. It's like a sixth grader.
I'm already zoning out on that. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to hear the second part of this.
The second one is you've got to simultaneously work on improving your money psychology. You've got to put a practice into place to start feeling good about money because so much of society tries to get us to feel bad.
I love this.
Those two things, you're going to be doing
I love
very
this
well.
because whether you're listening right now and you've got millions of dollars in the bank and you're set for life, or you are nearly $1 million in debt, like my husband and I used to be over a decade ago, starting with changing your psychology around money changes absolutely everything. And that's what we're going to focus on today, because that is something that we all need to do. Even if you've made a ton of money grinding it out, putting your head down, you probably haven't enjoyed it. And there is a way for you to change the way that you think and relate to and the psychology of money so that you have greater freedom, so that you have possibility, so that you're more present, so that you can be more confident and effective in your decision making. And that's exactly what Ramit is teaching millions of people to do. And it's available to all of us, regardless of where we've come from, what class we're in right now, what we've experienced in our lives. We can all just have a zero on the balance sheet, and we're going to go up from here, because Ramit's going to teach us how to change our psychology. So where exactly do we start, knowing that everybody comes to this conversation dragging historical baggage that they might not even be aware of about their relationship to just money and what it means?
Yeah. Let's imagine that it's the first day and you've decided to join the soccer team.
Okay.
People come with, some people have fancy shoes. Some people have no shoes. Some people are really physically fit. Others haven't run at all in years. And for this metaphor, I'll be the coach.
Okay.
And what I'm going to say is we're all in this together and we're all going to start on the same page.
Okay.
Okay. So I like to start from a place of, we're going to have fun with this. I'll tell you what we're not going to do. I'm not going to say, pull out this 46-part spreadsheet and let's go through all your spending. Nah, everyone's going to leave. And I don't even want to, no one, it's irrelevant. Instead, I want to do something, an exercise together with you, me, and everybody listening.
Okay.
About what I call your money dials. So I'm going to ask you, let's do this together. And everybody listening, I want you to follow along. So Mel, if I asked you, what is something you love to spend money on? Not like, but truly love. Look at that smile. What would it be?
Oh, I love buying dessert. I like, now that I've started, I've gotten out of debt. I make a lot of money. My favorite thing, and I always joke that this is my version of a Lamborghini.
Uh-huh.
When I go out with a group of people, I order every dessert on the menu.
Okay. What does that get you? Tell me about that. Why?
It feels really decadent and fun, and it allows me to sample things without committing. And it's a way to take care of everybody at the table, because everybody kind of secretly wished that, somebody would order one of the desserts.
Yes.
And it's a way to relax kind of that grip, like, oh, I'm only allowed one dessert, so I got to pick the one. It's just like a playful way that's kind of ridiculous. But every time I do it, everyone's like, oh my God, that's so fun. Yeah. And so I just love doing that. And I'm also a massive gift giver. So I love spending my money on other people and orchestrating gifts and creating experiences for people. Those are my two big things.
I love it. I hear so many things that I'm so thankful I get to highlight some of the things I just heard. So it sounds like your, what I would call a money dial, the thing you love is either gifting or eating out desserts.
Yes.
Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Okay, pick one. Which is the one that gets you really excited?
Gosh, I don't know.
I kind of think it's desserts, because you spent like 10 minutes talking about desserts.
Desserts.
Yeah. It's usually very obvious. Like people light up when they talk about.
Well, because I also feel like it is a gift, because nobody does it for themselves, and it's ridiculous. Like, why would you order all the desserts knowing everyone's going to take one bite? Because we can, and because it's fun, and
it's very abundant.
Yeah, and it's about abundance and play and like that kind of. It makes me feel like a kid almost.
Okay, I love it. So here we have Mel in like a Willy Wonka chocolate factory, just like we get it all. And it's very abundant. So for everybody listening, the most common money dial or thing you love to spend money on is eating out. Number 2 most common is travel. Number 3 is health and wellness. Number 4 is convenience, which happens to be my money dial. And there's a variety of others, you can search online. Okay, so that's great. For everybody listening, you should identify the thing you love and go into that detail. If you're doing it with a partner, notice how I asked her, why? Tell me what? What does it mean to you? Get curious. And then the second question I have for you, Mel, is if you were able to quadruple your spend on your money dial, what would that look like and feel like for you?
I'd send those desserts to everybody in the restaurant.
Whoa, tell me more.
Just kind of spreading that exuberance and joy and this kind of psychologically, it's not financially extravagant if you can afford to do it. Like, it's not like you went out and spent $200,000 on a car, but there's this level of surprise and exuberance that and extravagance that kind of, there's delight, there's surprise, there's the fact that it tastes good. That if I spread that through a whole restaurant, I think the positive vibes that would go out and the positive energy that would swell in that space would be freaking unbelievable.
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to take that and extend it even more.
Oh, okay.
Because I know you're very successful.
Uh-huh.
So let's say you eat out once a month, you could do that, no problem. It wouldn't even affect your bottom line. Let's turn it up even more. Not quadruple. Let's 10x it. Think expansively. Think beyond the confines of a restaurant.
Well, the first thing that came to mind was the Ben and Jerry's Free Cone Day.
Okay.
That they celebrate it was this year their 40th anniversary by having a day where they give everybody a free ice cream cone if they show up. And
How
they
would you do
typically
it?
support a charity, right?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
So you would do that, like a day of, let's say, outside of school or something, or some charity, you're just going to get an ice cream truck and rent it and do that.
Well,
How does
when
that
you
connect
said
with you?
school, I was like, how cool would it be if like everybody got dessert at school for free?
Okay. I love your answers. There is a cohesive thread that goes through them. It's generosity, it's surprise, it's delight, and it just happens to be around food. But I'm willing to bet in your life there's a bunch of other things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So for everybody listening, take this example we just heard and apply it to yourself. Let me give you some examples that will help.
Please.
So for most people, like I said, eating out is their number one money dial. And when I ask them to quadruple it, they almost always say the same like PG rated joke. They go, well, I'd probably have to watch what I eat because I'd be eating out 4 times a week. Ha 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 ha. I go, ha ha ha. And then I go, all right, listen, that's very linear thinking. The fact that you eat out once, so you're going to quadruple it, you're just going to eat out 4 times. That's linear. Like, okay, you could eat out 4 times a week, but are you going to eat at the same place? And people pause. They start thinking, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so if it's like Chipotle or whatever it is that you eat at, wow, okay. And I remember this young man in D.C., I was speaking there, and he said the same joke, and I had the same unamused response. And I go, where would you eat? And he thought for a second, and he goes, you know what? I have a list of every Michelin-starred restaurant in D.C. Young guy. I go, wow, okay, cool. You like food? He goes, yeah, I love it. I go, who would you take with you? And he got really quiet. The entire audience, pin drop silence. And he goes, I would take my family. Why? Because they could never afford to eat at places like that. Now that is a money dial. That is a vision of what you love today. And it could be modest, right? Buying dessert for your friends, that's very generous, also pretty modest. But when you understand, hey, where could I go with this? Could I turn my dial up 2x, 4x, 10x? What would it look like? It wouldn't just be more of the same. I might change the quality. I might change the frequency. If I love clothes, as a young woman in Pasadena did, I asked her, you going to still shop at the same place, H&M? She goes, no. And when we really explored and played, we came up with this idea that one day she could fly to Italy with her mom and they could get something custom made together in Italy. Now, she can't do that today. She can't do it tomorrow. But now she has a vision of what excites her with money. That's how we get started.
Why is it important to start with a vision that's exciting?
Because money is such a drag for most of us. When you think of money, what are the first words that come to mind?
Debt.
Yep. Restriction, overwhelming.
Mistakes.
Am I too late? Mistake. It sucks. So are we surprised that Americans have terrible financial behavior? Well, I'm not really surprised when everything around us basically tells us, don't pay attention to this until it's too late. I mean, it's more exciting to talk about flossing than it is to talk about money. It sucks. But if we start talking about, oh my God, I love to eat. I'm unapologetic about spending extravagantly on the things I love, as long as I cut costs mercilessly on the things I don't. Well, suddenly it's a lot more fun to talk about.
It really is, because I think there's so much shame that we carry about money, because there's all these expectations that you have about how much you should have by now, what you should have done with it. If only I had invested back in the day in Apple, like I missed these opportunities. I should have done this. I should have done that. And that sort of negative story that you keep reinforcing to yourself that then has you go, oh, I can't buy the guacamole. I better not get a latte. Fuck. Yeah. It keeps you stuck in that story. But when you allow somebody to play and dream again, because money, it's not only psychology, it's sort of a vehicle to do those things.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love what you said about the guacamole example, is that because we feel shame, because we feel like it's too late, our field of vision narrows, almost like if you've ever felt like you're about to faint. Everything shrinks, and we shrink our own desires. So I'll often ask people, what is your rich life? And you know what they always say to me? They always go, I want to do what I want, when I want. I go, oh, God,
there we go.
Okay. And then I go, wow, that's so interesting. I never heard that one except for the 8 million times I heard it. I go, so what do you want? And they are stumped because we never actually thought about what our rich life is. And so then I'm gentle. I want them to come to it, but I also want to have a little fun with them.
Yep.
And so they'll say something like, well, I guess it would be cool if I had a beach house one day, but it doesn't have to be a big beach house. It could be small. It could be a shack. It could be dilapidated. I don't even need anything. I go, what the hell? We're talking about your rich life and you already shrunk your desires in 5 seconds? I don't allow that. I go, dream bigger, and then let's figure out if your finances support it, what investments you need to make. And hey, maybe you're not going to get a 9-bedroom place in the Hamptons, but maybe you could get a beautiful place, rent it for a week, or buy it in 10 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we minimize ourselves unnecessarily.
And then that cuts off our access to authentic inspiration.
Yeah. Nobody's inspired by a tiny vision. Nobody's inspired by the idea like, ooh, I could save 5% on coffee. Who cares? That's not exciting.
It's so true.
Do you ever catch my anxiety when I get anxious?
No.
I think you get annoyed.
At least not in the moment.
How is it that you don't catch it? Because I catch our daughter Kendall's anxiety, or our daughter Sawyer, or our son's anxiety. But you seem to be able to insulate yourself from other people's anxiety.
Well, I mean, it's a good question because I do sometimes find myself catching our kids' anxiety, but I don't catch yours. And maybe that's just because of the amount of time that we've had together and the frequent moments often where I've been the one sitting there with you and trying to extract your anxiety, because that's really the technique that has always been so effective with you.
Can you explain that? Break down what you do. If I start getting anxious, like I did on Sunday, or I have throughout our 24-year marriage, what do you do? Because you have this superpower of being able to remain calm. And the thing that I find the most validating is, even though you don't feel anxious, you are able to validate my reality of being anxious, even though you're not in the same reality.
I mean, without giving it too much thought, I think some of it has to do with the fact that, first of all, touch is huge, right?
What do you mean touch?
Meaning being able to hold your hand or being close and upfront and personal to what you're experiencing, and just pulling what you're feeling out of your mouth. Like that act of inviting you to describe what's going on, to give detail to it, and to almost not let up, to keep like pulling a thread, like what else is going on? What else is there? What else are you feeling? And I think maybe part of the reason why I don't get triggered by it in that moment is because I've seen it work so effectively that once you get it all out,
It's like barfing.
it dissipates. So it's almost as though the calming nature of the question set and extracting that from your brain or from your heart or wherever you're feeling it, I know, or I have a high degree of confidence that it will calm down. It may not just extinguish itself, but it will go away.
So can we break this down for people? Because I'm not very good at that.
I didn't watch your video the other day, so I wondered what you did to actually calm yourself.
I journaled, I talked to you,
I then texted my 3 closest friends, Mindy and Lisa and Gretchen. And then I went for a really long walk, which stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system and calms you down. But so technique number 1 is to give somebody a hug or hold their hand, center them with physical touch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sit up close in front of them. Make sure that you have the as much eye contact as you can have physically with that person.
Okay. I'm realizing that you do this consciously.
It's
a sneaky guy.
It's been a few years.
And then the second thing you do is give people the questions that you might start asking the person in your life that's feeling anxious.
Well, I would start with, tell me about your anxiety right now. What are you feeling? What's happening? Not only physically in your body, but of course emotionally. I mean, those are the 2 main pillars.
And then you keep going and anything else. And he does that over until I'm literally like the tank is completely empty. You know what else I've noticed, and I think this is a really important thing, is that you don't respond to what comes out of my mouth.
No answers. You cannot provide any direction or guidance or go for the solve.
Why?
Because there is no solve, particularly when you're in the acute moment. There is nothing is going to resolve that right there and then, even if you have the most best, idea ever, which is super tough for guys in particular, I think, because we're so programmed to go for the solve rather than just be with it.
Here's what I just realized at the biggest possible level about why what you do with me when I feel anxious is so genius. Well, anxiety is all about uncertainty, and typically it's about what you're afraid of in the future that's coming that you can't control. And by getting close to somebody physically, even if it's over a video call and you lean in, but you always sit very close to me, or you give me a huge hug when I'm feeling anxious, or you hold my hand, you're grounding me with physical touch back in this moment. And then the questions of extracting it get me to a point where I'm empty and no longer spinning, and I'm right back in this moment when I have nothing left to say. And because you don't either try to discount or solve or invalidate anything that comes out of my mouth, you just get it out, I'm able to get it all out. Because the second you would say, well, you don't have to worry about that or this, that, and the other, somebody that's having anxiety will start to argue back, which then takes you back into the future fear.
Yeah, then you're jumping into a conversation, which is the last thing that the person who's suffering the anxiety wants to be having.
Since you've done this with me 100 times, and we have kids that have some anxiety, what is it that you've observed when you get somebody back to zero and in the moment? What do you observe in the person?
I don't know. I've never really thought about that. I think what I observe is what you just said, which is people coming back to right now, and how that is in and of itself is such a powerful grounding mechanism because you're when you're right here, you're out of your head. You're not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow or wherever the source of that anxiety may be coming from. You're present to your physical space and surroundings, and that I think I know it has a profound effect on calming it, not necessarily extinguishing it, but certainly calming it.
I think that's your superpower. I really do. You are the most grounded
calm person in my life. And I wonder if it's the years of having a meditation practice and being a practicing Buddhist that has trained that skill in you.
I think so. I mean, I've never sat down to think about where it comes from necessarily, but yes, in Buddhist tradition or practices, completely just being in observance and the act of deep listening, not just, opening your ears, but really listening for what is being said is totally, that's right up a Buddhist alley for sure.
Wow. Now I know why our kids like you more. I'm more fun, but you're the one that grounds us all. You have a question that I think the entire planet can relate to right now.
Yeah.
Which is difficulty focusing. So why don't you tell me first a little bit about your situation and the details around it and what you're noticing about your ADD and ADHD, okay?
Yeah, well, I was diagnosed at 28. And so I've been kind of working with my own symptoms for years now. I'm 38 on Thursday, actually.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Everybody
you.
give some thumbs up and some hearts to Angie. She's celebrating a birthday in quarantine. Here we go.
Yeah.
And your present is a coaching session with Mel Robbins.
That's exactly what I was going to say. This is the best birthday present. But then upon having kids, I have an almost 6-year-old and an 18-month-old, kind of taking on those responsibilities on top of your own ADHD. And then all of a sudden we started seeing symptoms in our almost 6-year-old around 3.5 of having ADHD. Like I would look at him and see, oh my gosh, that was me when I was his age. And it was just kind of building, and we had reached out to some doctors over.
Let me ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
So first of all, you get diagnosed with ADHD when you're 28 years old. Mm-hmm. What did you feel when you got that diagnosis?
Relief.
Okay. And how does ADHD present itself for you? Because what most of you don't realize is that ADHD in women and girls is very different than ADHD in men and boys. And that women are profoundly underdiagnosed. I was not diagnosed with ADD until I was 45 years old. And it was liberating to find out I wasn't crazy. I wasn't losing my mind. It wasn't premenopause. It was an attention and focus issue. And one of the things I want everybody to understand is, first of all, we're going to have a general conversation about focus, because whether you clinically have a diagnosis of ADD or ADHD, everybody is having trouble focusing right now. Mm-hmm. Every time, Angie, I walk through our kitchen and one of our daughters are down there. They're 21 and 19. They're both taking classes online because their colleges obviously got shut down. Every one of them is complaining to their friends. I've been upstairs all day. I haven't got anything done.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at my desk all day. I can't get any. I can't concentrate. I can't focus.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell am I doing all day? What is going on? And so the first thing I want to say to you, Angie, is that this is not a normal situation.
Mm-hmm.
And a normal response to an abnormal situation is to lose your focus and to feel anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want to know is, how is being in quarantine impacting your ability to focus?
It's as if it's just compounded and amplified with my husband working from home upstairs, having to figure out our schedules between, okay, who's going to do the schooling and who's going to be working at that time, or if the only little break we get to go one-on-one with our 6-year-old is when the 18-month-old takes a nap.
Okay, so let me just get the facts straight. You got your husband who's working full time. You've got a 5-year-old that has some issues with ADHD. You've got an 18-month-old. You have a home-based business, correct? And then is there anybody else in the house?
No. And I should add, our 18-month-old is, he's in the immunocompromised category because he was born 7 weeks premature. So he was in the NICU for a month, and actually last September and October, he went to daycare like 6 times and had to be hospitalized twice with RSV and respiratory issues.
Okay. So how is your 18-month-old doing today?
He's perfectly fine. He's on an inhaler twice a day, just as like protocol for his issues last fall. But it's also, that's part of the added fear for us is not only, are we in this situation, but we do have one of the people who is an immunocompromised member of our family. So we have to keep the grandparents away, and all of that. So it just feels really compounded.
Given that you are quarantined, your husband's got to work full time, you got a home-based business, you got 2 kids under 5, one of whom has a compromised immune system, so you got to be hyper vigilant. Describe for me how this situation has triggered your inability to focus and heightened your anxiety.
Well, yeah. And I really don't think I've had anxiety before now, really. I didn't really suffer. Like, I was misdiagnosed with depression earlier on before I was properly diagnosed with ADHD, but I didn't really have anxiety before now. But yeah, this is, it's a whole different level of all of the fears.
What are you afraid of? Describe them all for me. Let's start hearing the list. And if you can relate to this as you're watching me coach Angie, give us a thumbs up, or you can participate in this coaching by telling me in the comments, what are you afraid of? So describe kind of where your mind goes. What do you think about? What's the worst stuff you think about? What do you get anxious about, Angie?
I think the thing I think of is we barely left the house, but my husband does have to go get groceries, and he actually suffers from anxiety, so he's actually wonderful about cleaning off all the groceries and making sure everything is clean before he brings it in the house. We've had a couple packages, things that we've had to order online that we've had shipped, we leave outside. So it's that fear of something just by chance getting in and making him sick, and not being sure where it's coming from.
And where do you feel the anxiety when your thoughts start to spiral? Where do you feel it in your body?
In my chest. Yeah, okay. I feel like just this weight, like I can't breathe, and it just feels overwhelming.
And what do you do when your chest starts to get really tight and your thoughts become very overwhelming?
I just start talking. I just tell my husband how I'm feeling, or I just say, I got to get this out, because, and anybody that knows me knows that's true. I just start, I got to get this out, or else it's going to crush me. And internalizing it has only, proven to build the anxiety worse. So I've always been a talker, but like, I got to get it out. I have to tell you how I feel, just even if I just have to say it, so you can tell me that my fears are maybe a little out of whack, or, hey, this is what we're going to do to make sure that this doesn't happen. We're going to make sure that we have the groceries outside.
Right.
We're going to keep all the cardboard boxes outside, even what little risk that may be. We're gonna take all the precautions. I think my husband, he went to the grocery store yesterday, and he's like, I'm getting everything for 2 weeks, and he was gone for like 3.5 hours because he was just being so careful with everything. And it's just that thing that you don't want to drop the ball and feel like you're safe for a second in the risk of something happening to him.
And how exhausted are you?
Oh, it's completely exhausting. Like, I feel, I do get a little a little more sleep once we do all those things. Once I do talk it out, I feel like I'm able to actually sleep a little bit better. But yeah, it definitely, it pops up, and you just wake up and you think about, the worst case scenario happening. But I try
to right there. The anxiety is right there with you as well when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah. And if we're all home and no one goes anywhere, and it's fine. You know what I mean? It doesn't really present itself, but it's the, walking outside and going on a walk and, telling our 5-year-old, like, you can't run over to, that friend.
So I want to handle this one thing at a time. So let's talk about the anxiety first. Okay. So it would be weird if you weren't feeling anxiety right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because feeling anxious, feeling afraid, feeling overwhelmed in a moment like this is a normal response.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what happens when you start feeling anxiety is the anxiety itself becomes so overwhelming that you start to resist it and you make it wrong, and you start to fear the anxiety, and resisting it makes it even worse. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so talking it out is one strategy. But the thing about that is your 5-year-old will absorb that energy from you.
Yeah.
And so your 5-year-old won't remember the specifics of this period of time, but your 5-year-old will remember how it felt to be around mommy. Yeah. And so one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to use this as an opportunity to start to train your mind to not go there. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because your husband's already being hypervigilant. And what's happening is you're allowing your anxious thoughts to spin. And when you are talking them out, you're getting them out of your mind, but you are still giving them weight by now spreading all of this anxiety to your husband. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's a strategy that I want you to use. Okay. I want you to start to use this as a chance to catch your mind when you start to go into hypervigilance, which is a form of anxiety that a lot of people are feeling right now. Your safety and your family's safety is the paramount importance here. Mm-hmm. And you can bet on the fact that your husband, if he goes out every 2 weeks, is going to be doing the grocery shopping and being vigilant. And you can stand there with your spray bottle and spray him down with, your homemade sanitizer. But what you want to do is not allow your mind to go there. So there's 2 things I want there. Actually, I'm going to give you 3 tools I want you to use. I know you already know the 5-second rule. Mm-hmm. So when your mind starts to drift to, what are we going to do? What's your 18-month-old name?
Otis.
What happens if Otis gets this? What happens if Otis has to go into the hospital? What happens if there's something on the milk carton and then it touches me and then I touch him and then Otis gets sick and then I'll never forgive myself and then we get there and there's no ventilator and then he's in the NICU and that is the moment that we got to stop down. So the moment you catch your thoughts going from one thought, did he wipe down the milk? Mm-hmm. That's how it begins. Mm-hmm. And it starts going to the next one, because if he didn't, you're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
And we're going to stop it down because we're not going to allow ourselves to get hysterical.
Yeah.
You are allowed to ask him, is everything cleaned off? Do you need me to wipe anything? You're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to have your mind go nuts. Okay. Yeah. Super important. So that's number 1. Number 2, when you start feeling yourself stepping up the anxiety, you are really cleaning everything like crazy, or you're feeling that chest pressure come on. When that steps up, I want you to step out of the room for a minute.
Okay.
I want you to take control by removing yourself from the thing you're hyper focused on. Like, is there something that you do when you get anxious? You clean, you organize the what do you do?
Yeah, I clean.
Okay.
Organize, do laundry, something.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you catch yourself doing anxiety chores, I want you to step away. I want you to step out, and I want you to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not going to allow myself to get worked up about this. Here's the final thing that I think will help a lot. Telling yourself that nothing bad is going to happen does not work.
Exactly.
And the reason why it doesn't work is because when you say nothing bad's going to happen, it invalidates your fear.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to disappear fear that is supported by facts, because we all do need to protect our family's safety, and we all do need to be vigilant in terms of washing hands and cleaning stuff when we get it from the grocery store. So the fear is valid, but I don't want the fear to hijack you. So what you're going to say is, when you feel the chest tightening, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're going to say, if something happens, we'll deal with it then.
Yeah.
Today, we're all safe. So can you say that with me? If something happens, here we go. If something happens, we'll deal with it then.
We will deal with it when it comes, and we will all be safe.
Yes. And what does saying that do for you?
It just gives me the control back, which I think is like everybody feels like this is all out of our control. So if I'm saying that, then I take it back, and then the anxiety won't control me.
Yes, because as weird as it sounds, anxiety is a coping mechanism. Because when you can't control all the craziness that's going on out there, you start to feel anxiety, and you start to get nervous, and your thoughts start to spiral. And whatever it is that you do, talking it out, or folding laundry, or focusing on your chest tightening, all of that worrying distracts you from the thing you can't control. And then it makes you focus on anxiety and getting control of anxiety. And so we don't want anxiety to be the thing that's controlling you. Using that mantra, hey, if something happens, we'll deal with it then, and we will all be safe. And today, everybody is great. Today, we're doing our part. And the today part's really important because it brings you back into the present. Anxiety is trying to hijack you and pull you into a scary future. Hey, no, if something happens, we'll deal with it then. Today, we're all safe, and there's nothing that I need to concern myself with. Okay?
I want to go back to what we were talking about, because this is super important for everybody that just walked in the room to hear. So we were talking about, Heidi had asked a question about imposter syndrome. And so I want to bring y'all into this conversation because this is critical for you to hear. It's critical for you to learn these simple tools. That as she's successful, as she's making stuff happen, she has this nagging voice in her head that's like, you don't deserve this. This is going to get taken away. You know, you're an imposter. People are going to find out. Like this nagging thing that is beating her down, even as she's trying to rise up. Can you guys relate to that? Okay, terrific. And so, well, not terrific. I don't want that voice in your head, but I'm glad that you can relate to what we're talking about. So I'm like, we got to go to war with that voice. And I want today to be a line in the sand where you will look back on today and you'll go, okay, there was a before I heard this conversation and there was an after. And so the first thing that I want you to do is I invented something called the 5-second rule, where you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a little brain trick where it interrupts all the nastiness and the patterns and old habits here that hold you back. And by the time you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you awaken this part of your brain. And you are immediately in control of what you think and do next. And one of the best uses for this thing, and you're going to hear me talk about it on the big stage, and I'm going to show you some examples of how people are using this around the world. One of the best uses is to silence the critic in your head, to interrupt that nagging voice. And one of the other things I want you to understand is that your brain is a supercomputer, and your brain loves patterns. And all those little thoughts that you have are just a pattern. And guess what? It's a pattern somebody else taught you. It's a pattern that a caregiver or a parent or a bully or society at large taught you that made you feel less than or unworthy. And it is time to kick that bully out of your freaking head. And the thing that's important about this, and this is like hand-to-hand combat with your own mind, is that if that pattern is not broken and replaced, that pattern will repeat. And for some of us, what I've started to realize in my own life is that I'm just repeating thought patterns that my great-grandmother had and my grandmother had, and then she taught them to my mother, and then my mother said them to me. And I have an opportunity to end that garbage. I have an opportunity to speak to myself differently. And so step number one is I need you to recognize that. So how many of you in the back row are tracking with what I'm saying? Give me a hand in the air so I know. Okay, great. Second thing, when you notice, oh, there's that thing again, you're going to count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is the second part of this. So we're going to notice it. We're going to count backwards to interrupt it. Now we're going to name it. Okay? So I want you to close your eyes. I've already asked everybody in the room to close their eyes. Think about that nasty, awful, disgusting, kind of thing. You can make it funny. You can make it gross. You can be a real person. And I want you to think of a name that we're going to call this voice. When my son was struggling with anxiety, he called anxiety Oliver. And he made Oliver look like a big old pimply 8th grader who was miserable, right? And whenever the voice would come on, he would go, all right, Oliver, you're not invited to the sleepover. I'm going to go. Oliver, I'm not taking you to school with me today. And there's a lot of science behind this because by naming it and picturing something, whether it's broccoli, somebody in the room said she hates broccoli, so the voice is broccoli, you distance yourself. This is the power of objectivity. So, right here, what's the name of your voice? What is it? Ollie? Ollie. Okay, great. Right here with the pins, cute pins, yes. Maria. Maria's the voice? Okay, Maria, get out of here. White blazer. Tomatoes. Okay, excellent. She hates tomatoes, apparently. And here's the thing. Have any of you ever had a puppy? Okay, great. Have you ever tried to train a puppy on a leash? Right, and the puppy just wanders all over the place? This is another analogy for your mind. Think about your thoughts and your mind like a puppy on a leash. The best way to get a puppy to calm down is to just step on the leash. That's what we're doing. When your mind starts to wander and tomato and broccoli and, Maria and Bob show up, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of here, Bob. That's how you're going to step on the leash. You're going to pull your thoughts right back to your own. And then you want to replace it. You want to replace it. And you can replace it in the beginning by just saying, I'm not thinking about that. You're not going to talk to me like that. Okay? Awesome. Because if you allow that voice to stay, it will just continue. And as you get more and more and more successful, you will take that voice with you. And you will never truly reach not only your potential, but you will also not have the fulfillment and happiness that you deserve. And it begins with what you're saying up here. And we all do it. You're not alone. If I were to put a speaker on everybody's head in here and turn up the volume, you wouldn't be sitting here. We'd all be on an inpatient unit somewhere because, like that, the way we talk to ourselves is really awful. Really awful. I agree, right? Yes, exactly. Okay, another question. Thank you for that. Right here.
I'm going through like a little existential crisis, I would say. I'm trying to decide between what I need and what I want.
Oh.
Earlier, like 5 minutes before I came in, I got the job opportunity that I applied for. However, the job that I have now is what I love doing, and that's why I changed my major. But the job that I was just offered and I accepted will help me pay for rent and living more than the job that I have. And it's like, I can take both jobs. So I have 2 jobs now, but it would mean that instead of working 20 hours, I'd be working 38, and I'm a full-time college student. And
Yep.
I don't want to burn myself out, but at the same time, I don't want to not pursue what I have now because I need to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Living-wise.
Yeah. Okay, it's an excellent question. How many of you can relate to this? Yeah, the conflict between what your heart longs for versus like what is the responsible thing to do. So I'm going to give you a couple tools to think about decision making, everybody. Okay? Because sometimes you just have to do whatever you need to do to make the ends meet. Right? Sometimes that's what you have to do. But not always. Not always. I don't think we live in I don't think we live in a rigid world. I think we relate to the world like it is. And so one of the tools I use a lot is I try to switch myself from an either or mentality into an and mentality. So how could I take that job that is going to help me pay my bills and help me feel secure and help me feel like I am making all these ends meet, because there is a level of stress that you feel that is so distracting and devastating when you cannot pay your bills. And I know that stress because just 14 years ago, my husband and I were $800,000 in debt. His restaurant business had gone under. I was unemployed. We were about to lose the house. I could not pay for groceries. We had to pull our kids from that town soccer program because we couldn't afford it. And the stress was so excruciating that I literally couldn't get out of bed. In fact, that's how I invented the 5-second rule. I would lay in bed every morning, and the anxiety was like a gravity blanket. And I would stare at the ceiling, and my mind would just spiral. It's like I did not know to step on the leash. I did not know what to do. And so this whole 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 came during a rock bottom moment. Like, I knew I needed to get out of bed. I just didn't know how. And so the counting became the how. And so what I want you to do, though, is I want you to think, is there a way to do both? Could you accept the job so that you have, or you've already accepted it, but could you accept that job and be happy about it and empowered, and go back to what you're doing now and say, can I do this but only X number of hours? So that you still have a foot in something that fills your soul, versus going, it can only be this or that. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So have that conversation, because then you keep a door open to something. The second thing I would do, and this is really important, everybody. So I partnered with LinkedIn, and we've launched this course all about confidence, so we can talk a little bit about confidence, what it is, what it isn't, how to build it. And the other thing that I did with them is I was the host of this big thing they called the Future of Work. And one of the things that I heard loud and clear is that the most important thing that you can invest in any job that you have is skills. So if you're going to go into a technical job, like you're going to be a chemist, or you're going to be in pharma, or you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to be an engineer, there's a certain level of expertise that you need in order to do that job. But the vast majority of jobs, of businesses you might start, of all the things that you might do, are all about skills. Can you speak in public? Can you present your ideas? Can you write something? Can you sell somebody on an idea? Like, skills, can you connect with people? Are you inspiring and uplifting with people? Skills that you can learn on any job. And so the second piece of advice I'm going to give you is this. I want you to think about, what is it about the job that you have now that really fills your soul?
The opportunities it gave me, like the job I have now, is how I got here with the cauldron on the rise, and it's opened so many doors for me.
And it feels like I can almost feel you getting emotional as you think about it.
Yeah, it's what made me change my major. I was a political science major, and then I got the programming job that I have now with SGA as a public relations officer.
Amazing.
And now I switched my major to communications with a concentration in sports business management, because I love planning events and stuff.
Amazing.
And that's why, even though it's fun and it doesn't pay the bills, it doesn't, but it's fun and it makes me happy and it alleviates the stress of having to make ends meet. The other job, which is not as fun, will make ends meet.
Yep.
And the stress of not having to worry about rent every month, especially the way the housing is working.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, what do I have to do? It's like.
Well, what I'm telling you is, I think you can figure out a way to do both without working that many hours. And I also think if you love the event planning and you love the communication, here's a great tip, everybody. Look for opportunities inside whatever you're doing now to do more of what you love. So every job, even if it's boring as you know what, they need help with social media marketing. They probably have some sort of something going on, whether it's an employee gathering that you can raise your hand for and help out, so that you bring some of the stuff that you love into the day-to-day of what you're doing. Does that make sense? Yes. Awesome. And here's the final thing. I believe that when you are born, you are hardwired with an inner compass. It's like your own Google Maps or Waze system. And I'm going to prove it to you, okay? So have you ever thought about the odds of you actually being born? Because here's the thing, believe it or not, a bunch of scientists calculated the odds. What are the odds with, I know this is kind of gross, but all the sperm that your dad has, who wants to think about that? And eggs that your mom has, and the number of times that they fooled around and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? What are the odds of that one sperm and that one egg coming together and actually creating you? 1 in 400 trillion. 1 in 400 trillion. And here's some really interesting research. We now know that it wasn't about how fast that thing swam. We know that it was the egg. The egg was choosy. And guess what? The egg chose you. Absolutely. Absolutely. You are here for a reason. And I want you to embrace that you are here for a reason. And when you are born into this world, all of that magic that makes you a miracle gets hardwired into your DNA. And it is part of the wiring in your body. And your body is a system of signals that are trying to get you to turn in the direction that's meant for you. And so you were talking about needs, right? There are signals in your body that signal your need. So, for example, you got to eat or else you're going to die. So what is the signal that you feel? What do you feel when you need food? Hungry. Correct. What do you feel when you need sleep?
Tired.
Yeah. What do you feel when you need connection with other human beings? Yes. What do you feel when you need some water? Exactly. Exactly. And here's something that's really interesting. Feeling stuck and feeling lost are also signals. When you feel stuck and you feel lost in your life, it means you've stopped growing. You are going to grow for your entire life. Until the day you die, your brain can learn new patterns. And so I want you to understand that your body is always trying to signal you.
Can people with anxiety ever truly be happy? And before you answer that, because I'm sure it's going to be yes, how is it that anxiety is impacting your ability to question whether you're capable of happiness?
So anxiety is not one thing. It's a lot of different things. So you have to sort of know what's the origin of your anxiety. I mean, some anxiety is good. Let's just start with that. People who have low levels of anxiety die early from accidents and preventable illnesses. So what's the right dose of anxiety? Too much, you suffer. Too little, you suffer. And other people suffer because of you. So let's just own it's some anxiety helps you live a long time. I used to, in the book, I actually start with the lies of happiness. And one of the most important lies is the don't worry, be happy mindset. That's going to make you very unhappy because you won't be consistent. You won't be reliable. You're not going to, have success in whatever area of your life, whether it's health or career, so on. So baseline anxiety is important when we wake up, and it sort of evolved in our nervous system because if you didn't wake up with anxiety, you got eaten. And so the people who lasted had some anxiety. We don't need the anxiety we had before. And so what do you do to calm your nervous system? And they're just super simple things you can do, like diaphragmatic breathing. It's my favorite way to calm myself down when I get anxious.
Now walk us through it. How do you do it?
It's in a very specific way. So when I say diaphragmatic breathing, most people don't use their diaphragm when they breathe. But if you ever watched a baby breathe or a puppy breathe, they breathe
almost down here, right?
Almost exclusively with their belly. And that's why women should never wear tight clothes, because it inhibits their ability to expand their belly. And so when you feel anxious, what I want you to do literally takes 2 minutes. Take a big breath, 4 seconds in, hold it for a second, and then 8 seconds out, and hold it for a second. You do that 10 times, about 2 minutes, you're going to be so much calmer because you're going to flood your brain with oxygen. And that pattern takes twice as long to breathe out as you breathe in, activates your vagal nerve, which calms down your body and your brain.
Amazing.
Pretty
2 minute
simple.
tip, everybody. 2 minute
So-
tip right there. 4 in, hold it, 8 out, hold it 10 times, 2 minutes or less, activate the vagal nerve, boom, you're going to feel calmer. So the answer though is that of course you can be happy if you have anxiety. This breathing technique is going to help you gain control in moments of anxiety. Obviously the tools in the book you're talking about, but what What else do you want somebody who's like, maybe it's generalized anxiety, or maybe there's something acute happening in their life and they just feel like they're never going to get to that point where they can feel
Well,
happy?
so 4 simple steps. So one, when you're anxious, don't leave a situation unless it's dangerous, because that's how agoraphobia happens, where people actually don't leave their house, is
Okay.
they give in to the anxiety. So don't leave. Breathe with your belly, write down what you're thinking, and then go through the steps to get rid of the automatic negative thoughts. It's so helpful. First time I was on television, I was on CNN, and I had a panic attack in the green room because I'd never been on television. And I didn't leave because I started laughing at myself. It's like, oh, you treat people who have this problem. Don't leave. Breathe. I breathe. They start feeling better. And then I wrote down what I was thinking. You're going to forget your name. 2 million people are going to think you're an idiot. You're going to stutter. As I wrote those things down, I just started chuckling because, it's like, okay, is it true? Is it absolutely true? And I'm like, and I just played with the thoughts. You're going to forget your name. Well, I have my driver's license in my wallet. Or 2 million people are going to think you're an idiot. People should write this down. 184060. I wrote down that number, 184060. It's a rule I teach my patients. When you're
What is
18, you worry.
1840-60?
When you're 18, you worry about what everybody's thinking of you. When you're 40, you don't give a damn what anybody thinks about you. And when you're 60, you realize nobody has been thinking about you at all. People
you wish they
spend
would.
their days worrying and thinking about themselves, not you. And so I went on and I did fine. But if I was still anxious, I would take GABA, magnesium, theanine. There's so many great anti-anxiety supplements. I would not take Xanax or Klonopin because they're addictive and they can hurt your brain. A whole bunch of research studies out that they can increase your risk for dementia. And once you start them, you can't stop them. And I never want to put somebody on a medicine. Nope. Once you start it, you can't stop it. And those 4 simple things, I make something called Calm My Brain, GABA calming, magnesium chewables. It's like, just find the one that helps settle your nervous system. And it takes discipline, but anything takes discipline.
It's true.
And
now let me ask you a couple others, because I got 3 more questions I want to ask you about anxiety. We got a question from Revive Wellness Coach wanting to know, why is it that so many of us wake up in the middle of the night with a big wave of anxiety, even if I fell asleep and I was calm when I fell asleep?
So it's generally a cortisol spike that happens. And if you drink before bed, you're more likely to wake up in the middle of the night with anxiety, because alcohol suppresses brain function. But then when it wears off, it rebounds up. So drinking will do it. Sometimes it's a bad dream, and trauma work is really important. I like using phosphatidylserine at night because it prevents
phosphatidylserine. What the heck is that?
It's a supplement
okay.
that helps prevent the cortisol spike. 300 milligrams phosphatidylserine at night.
I think we just sold out Amazon, by the way.
And doing the diaphragmatic breathing when you wake up in a panic will often put you back to sleep. I'm also a huge fan of hypnosis. We have a new app called Happy Brain, HAPI Brain, and in it, we have our hypnosis track for sleep, and it's just one of the most popular things I do. I could medicate you, but it's generally not a good thing.
You've already told us, no alcohol, everybody. Deal with trauma. Try this supplement whose name I can't pronounce. Listen to the meditative sleep apps. He's offering one on his app. It's interesting. We've got another question related to anxiety and sleep, but it's, why does anxiety hit in the early hours of the morning or just before daybreak?
Well, so if you're drinking at night, that's one of the reasons, because you're withdrawing from it. And then some people get this cortisol spike, and it might have something to do with what you ate. the day or even 2 or 3 days before. So I have my patients keep a food journal, because you may be sensitive to gluten, dairy, corn, soy, artificial dyes, and sweeteners. But people often have a delayed reaction where they may not actually get symptomatic for 2 or 3 days. And that's why for all of my patients, I mean, food's just such an important part of the treatment plan. Eat right, you'll think right, you'll feel right.
Awesome. So here's a question I get all the time. How do I support my 21-year-old daughter who is struggling with anxiety?
Well, I do the happiness challenge with her. We have a 30-day happiness challenge. It's part of the Happy Brain app. They're all, and I find people that do the challenge with a partner, they double their success because they have accountability. They're more likely to follow through. They can talk about what they're learning. And so if you have someone in your life who is struggling with anxiety or depression or happiness, do the challenge with them. I mean, it's so simple. Actually, now it's like free for 60 days.
Where did
so
they
people
go to
can
get
get
it?
through it. So it's only on iPhone now. Soon it'll be for Android. But just go to the App Store, Happy Brain, HAPI brain.com, or do a study guide with the book, or do a study on the book and just go, oh, what's your type? What's my type? Are we doing things that are good for my brain? Oh, that's an ant. Let's figure out how to get rid of the ants. It's these basic skills. Mel, I've come to believe mental health is just like physical health. It's a daily practice. People who are physically unhealthy, generally, unless it was an accident, it wasn't one decision that caused it. It was thousands, millions of decisions. That if you want to be mentally healthy, there are millions of decisions to make. But it's these 7 simple things every day. Am I taking care of my brain? Am I believing every stupid thing I think? Am I focused on my goals? Am I noticing what I like about other people?
Amazing. So, here's what I loved about this. Kind of the biggest takeaway for me is that happiness, a happier brain, happier thoughts, a more positive outlook, better mental health, none of this stuff is going to happen by accident. There are small, simple, little things that when you get intentional about getting these little things right, the ripple effect takes your life in an entirely new direction. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.